You know, you may notice we don't have any music. We don't have a lot of stuff running. The computer or the backup server I'm using just kept crashing. So I just didn't have the music. So we're not gonna keep the timer. Timer normally lets everything sync up. So I'm just gonna talk a little bit to try to get things to sync up, because it takes about a minute and a half for every place to obtain the access to the stream. So I don't want anybody to miss what's going on. Sorry for the late start and everything. Like I said, my device just keeps crashing every single time I hit go stream. It crashed. Well, let's get into it. Today I'm hoping to change your perspective on what ring signatures are with Monero. So with all forms of cryptographic exchanges and cryptocurrency transfers require some form of signature from the sender on-chain to prove the transfer is legit. One way to ensure privacy is trying to hide the real signature of the sender in a manner that is verifiable by the receiver and system. So today we will talk about how we sign on Monero instead of how one would sign cryptographically, because the phrase is ring me, sign we. So before we go any further, let's go ahead and thank today's partnerships and sponsorships. So I want to thank Deorganized for teaming up with Bitcoin Live Digital Broadcasting, DB, because Bitcoin Live DB and Deorganized is a powerhouse combo, and I see new heights for both organizations. Now, if you haven't checked out both Deorganized early morning broadcast and late night stacks, then for other, they do a bunch of different topics and stuff. Well, you're missing out, because they've been taking off with every morning and every evening, getting more and more, and you can find them on just about every platform you can see this. So I do want to thank today's sponsors, which is Shieldfolio. Let me jump that up. Alright. I want to thank Shieldfolio for sponsoring today's episode from within a quantum bit, as well as the Bitcoin Live DB network. Now, if you haven't seen a Shieldfolio, well, they're like a little black book made from stone paper. So they're phase resistant, tear resistant, even water resistant. So you know the info and secrets you store in your Shieldfolio will last us forever, or whatever you throw at it. I personally have a Shieldfolio, and I use it for my website info, contacts, crypto keys, among other things, because these are little black books that are pocket sized to be rated by your side, regardless of your adventure in real life or online. And I really do mean that. They are really neat pieces of paper. Now, they do have more options and stuff on their website. Go ahead and use that QR code to jump to the website, get yourself Shieldfolio and other products, and use the code BitcoinLive20. You get 20% off your purchase today. Now, before I go any further, let's roll in with the roll-ins and see if they actually roll in. Alright, thank you again, Shieldfolio, for sponsoring today's episode. So let's jump into it before something else crazy happens. Well, I want to welcome everybody into the photon of the greater fourth dimensions quantum machine. And so throughout today's episode, we are going to basically have these little QR codes. Now, anytime you see a QR code, that does mean that you can scan it, use an OCR or your local AI to actually get access to that website, so that way you can use your phone or something to go ahead and keep track while you're listening, or after the fact. If you want to check out any of these, you can always go back and just scan it, or you can go over to YouTube and get the links directly from the description. Okay, so these right here, this first one up, this actually is Deorganized Media. Again, they go live almost every morning, every evening. They go live about Bitcoin, stacks, and other things. They're digitally popping for what's going on online. Alright, so we're going to keep on moving. Today's free pre-search query is XMR signatures breakdown. Like always, I did not use this query in today's episode research, but that doesn't mean we won't have overlapping links. If anything about today's episode interests you, use this free pre-search query. Should be able to help find you and jump into this rabbit hole. So just afterwards, come on back, use this keyword to come over, or just go over to pre-search and type it in, XMR ring signature breakdown, and jump down this rabbit hole. Alright. Gotta figure out how I'm going to do this section a bit better. This section right here, the breakdown section, the reminder of what's going on. So let's catch up. So far we've covered quite a bit of the privacy side of things for Monero. For example, we have previously went over how you don't even have to broadcast your own transaction, but you can get another node to do it for you. We talked about how we can separate ourselves from the transaction, and we hinted at ring signatures doing something with that as well. So that's what led us here today, privacy. Now hopefully when we are done with today, you will have an understanding on how we hide in the numbers with ring signatures. Hopefully you can take this information and the last episode's information and construct how you can how you can obfuscate all parts of the transaction or transfer without routing back to yourself, because these are similar techniques to actually covering your digital footprint online. So we got this really neat video for you guys to see. I tried to make this episode as easy as possible for you all to take in. So this very first one we get is a Get Monero video. They have put the words as simple as possible. I cannot explain it any simpler than this, but we will explain it in more detail here in a second.
Of the transaction, the sender's privacy is protected with the use of ring signatures. A ring signature is a type of digital signature in which a group of possible signers are fused together to produce a distinctive signature that authorizes a transaction. This is analogous to the signing of a check from a joint bank account, but with the actual signer remaining unknown. The digital signature is made up of the actual signer combined with non-signers to form a ring, where all members are equal and valid. The actual signer is a one-time spend key that corresponds with an output being sent from the sender's wallet. The non-signers are past transaction outputs pulled from the blockchain, which act as decoys. These outputs together make up the inputs of a transaction. To a third party, all of the inputs appear equally likely to be the output being spent in the transaction. This feature helps the sender hide the origin of the transaction by making all inputs indistinguishable from each other. You may now be asking yourself, if there is no way for a third party to verify which output is being spent, what would prevent someone from spending the same output twice? This potential issue is addressed by the use of key images. A key image is a cryptographic key derived from an output being spent and is made part of every ring signature transaction. There can exist only one key image for each output on the blockchain. Yet due to its cryptographic properties, it is not possible to determine which output created which key image. A list of all used key images are maintained in the blockchain, enabling miners to verify that no outputs are spent twice. Let's go through an example to see how all this works. Alice wants to send Monero to Bob with a ring size value of 5. One of the 5 inputs will come from Alice's wallet, which will be consumed in the transaction. The other 4 inputs are arbitrarily picked from the blockchain and are used as decoys. This forms a group of 5 possible signers, where all ring members are plausibly the actual signer of the transaction. To an outside observer, including to Bob himself, it's not clear which input was truly signed by Alice's one-time spend key. However, with the key image, the network is able to securely confirm that the Monero being transferred to Bob has not been spent before. As you can see, by using ring signatures, Monero protects the privacy of the sender by obscuring the source of inputs, and in doing so, ensures that the origin of any Monero remains untraceable.
Alright, so that really is the simplest way to describe it. There is way more complicated ways, and well, we can just directly get into that data, which we're gonna. Alright. So, this page that you can access right here. This actually has, like, if you're on your regular phone or your desktop or whatever, it will actually have the video at the top. So this is a read-only page that we're looking at right here, and this is generically all the same text from the video. Now, I'm not going to go through and read this for you. You can come read this if you would like to later. I just wanted to give you the rest of the source for that video, basically. So, just to help explain though, so when you are transacting on Monero, there are layers of the privacy. So let's assume you're running a mid-privacy setup. So you have a lowered ring size. Well, use an example ring size of 5, like from the video, but you will use Dandelion++ to let a different node broadcast. You're separating yourself from the IP, from the transaction, while the ring signature actually separates the transaction from the receiver. So right now, there's still things that can be done, like if people know your receiving address and they build a list of sent to addresses, there's a chance a big exchange could actually map false addresses to bypass ring security. That's why we will have to discuss stealth addresses eventually. But first, there is a reason why ring signatures are so important. Because if you didn't just hear, there is a way to bypass ring signature security. Okay, but that is on low signage, low numbers, and without stealth addresses. So why is it so important to have it if it's by itself not getting the job done? And I think that was the hardest part of today's episode. Oh, sorry about that. I think that was the hardest part of today's episode, was trying to find any amount of proof that explains why this is so important. And in some way, ring signatures is just that simple. We're hiding in the numbers. We're not the only person being presented. We're not the only transaction being presented. Okay, so let's get you to some explanation here. So we're here on ChristopherCovedale.com. Yeah, this is like a personal researcher's actual personal blog, and it's really good. So here you can see we're partway in the blog, and it starts off with, what are ring signatures? Ring signatures consist of several key pieces. This is the anonymity set. The signer selects a group of public keys and some decoys and one of their actual public keys, right? So this allows them to hide in plain sight. One of the only keys in the ring belongs to the actual signer. The cryptographic trick is to construct a valid signature without revealing which one. So that, I believe, is the magic trick that we are going to see with ring signatures that a lot of people don't understand, is it never reveals which one is correct. An array of responses and challenges used with the challenges to show knowledge of the private key without revealing it. This is used with a zero knowledge proof loop. The signature must wrap around the ring, making it internally consistent while proving knowledge of the private key without revealing it. A message to sign. So this is a content being signed, okay? Including it binds the signature to the message, ensuring integrity and preventing replay attacks. A replay attack is basically what they were saying at the end. We reuse the same key, use the same funds over and over and over. How ring signatures are constructed. So they select the ring. As signers collects a set of public keys. The set includes decoys and the signer's rule randomly placed in the ring. The signer's notes their own index. So the signer needs to know their index, where they're at in there, right? So we're going to generate the key image. And you see here, they're going to do hash to point I equals X times HP, which is your hash to point. So we're going to use the signer's key. We're going to use the private key. We're going to have a hash of the P mapped to the underscore curve point, and then finally the key image. So I is the key image. Alright, in Monero, each transaction output has a unique one-time public key. A key image ensures that each output can only be used spent once. As the same image appears again, it's flagged as a double spend. So here's how we generate that. Here's the signature loop, generate left to right. Next, the signer picks a random secret scalar k and uses it to compute the value. Okay, so we see compute key image, p equals this fun thing, x equals this fun thing, HP is still hash to point, key image still equals x times the hash point. Okay, so our public key is the signer index by the pub key to the point. The private key is by the private key to the secret multiplier. Okay, so then choose random x to computate first. Randomly choose a number. Okay, L equals x times G, R equals x. Okay, so you get the idea here, right? There's a lot of randomization. There's a lot of setup too. These values serve as a starting point for the challenge response ring. The first challenge is computed by the hashing of the message and the values left to right. So the data equals the message plus the left dot x to the bytes with big, and then the R to the other big, right? And then challenge signer plus 1 to the percent of n that sets the size, and then equals h data, so it equals your output. Loop through the ring. Now the signer begins generating fake responses for decoy public keys. It computates corresponding values. Then using these fake responses and the previous challenge. So here they're going to generate fake responses and put them in there. And it kind of shows you how it goes through these various different steps to make sure that it happens. Okay. Each time a new challenge is generated based on the left to right, the message propagating through the ring. Close the loop with the real response. Nice. Once the challenge loop comes back around to the signer's original index, they computate the real response value, such as the final left to right match, and close the ring, making sure the signature is verifiable without revealing which index they signed from. Now verifying the ring signature is a bit more. So here we're going to have to computate the challenges, loop through the provided values, confirm the loop wraps around correctly, and then check that the key image hasn't actually appeared before. Then the required variables for the receiver. Okay, so then they get the message that was signed. They need the array of the public keys. They need the signature, right? A tuple containing a challenge or a set of challenges, the starting point of the ring, a response, an array of responses or scalars, one per public key, and then the actual key image. So if we go down here, it's going to show you all the math and how they actually obtain that. And this is done in order to tell you, like, so it's all just pretty simple. I say pretty simple. This is not really simple, right? This is not simple, but in forms of like encryptions and stuff, this actually is quite simplified in what's going on. And that's it. That's all you're doing. So you see, when you go to verify it, it's step, 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 step. It's probably just about as many steps as the other one, except for maybe like 2 or 3. And you might have to loop through some of that. So that's where the extra steps actually come from. But boom, you eventually come back and find your end. And that's kind of the important part about this, is we're able to take all this information, right? All these different keys, all these different things, and we're able to stick them nice and neatly inside of a signature. Imagine you write your name down, like you try to sign yours for something, and you, instead of writing just your name, right, like a bunch of other people write their name in the exact same spot too. Before you, then you, after you, whatever, some mixture of, you get to choose, you randomly pick them, it's fine. Well then, because someone at least saw all that happen, they can say, well, I did see him sign. So, sure, I witnessed the sign. That's similar to being able to pull out the data, even though we don't know which one of them it actually was that signed the person's real name. It could have been any one of us that signed that person's real name. So now imagine you go to the counter, and you don't go to the counter, your grocery cart, your buggy, your basket, it goes to the counter, and cashier can't see anybody. Brings everything up. Now it's time for someone to sign to pay for this. And one at a time, someone different comes up and signs. And then someone comes up different and signs. And just keeps on going. The cashier can say they saw 6 people sign, 9 people sign, 13 people sign. And then you go, well, which one was the real? I don't know. Like 5, 6 different ways. But then when you try to leave the building, they want to check your shit. Okay, so that is similar. We don't really care how in the hell you get your transaction to the blockchain, how in the hell you made it, as long as it follows this one few rule, like for example the ring signature rule, and the various rules are followed. When you come up to use that funds, we scan that shit, right? We scan what you got, we scan the blockchain. Oh no, you know what? I have not seen this receipt yet. We scan it, okay, so we're good to go. The next person shows up, it's got all the same items, just about. Maybe something's different. But, same exact receipt. Nope, sorry, seen this receipt, can't let you through. Fuck off, bro. So, there used to be this thing where it was like, first movers advantage had this advantage with Monero, and it ain't true anymore, and that is because the ring signature size was increased over time. And it's kind of complicated because when we're talking about this, the ring signature is so much. I have some notes. I'm going to read these notes. Just like if you was to hide with 4 other people that look just like you, but say none of you sounded the same. It may take a test of just having everyone say a phrase at the same time to verify all peoples have the same phrase. Then asking all the peoples one at a time to say the phrase until you find the person you're looking for. So the trick is simple, but the result is huge to privacy, of course. And that is the point. Okay, so simple but huge impact to your privacy. Now, I did want to have a few more things up and running for today's episode. I'm just going to push them to next episode since I couldn't get started on time. I'm basically just going to cut short today because the computer issues, and I do apologize. But we're going to include that in the next one, which will help. Originally it was going to be like a preview of what's next, but we'll just do it all with there. We'll do it all next time. Boom, shabam. I say it like that because I'm looking at the notes. It would take me a long time to read that. So we're going to... But this is the main part of ring signatures. It is simple, but huge impact when used with other things to ensure privacy. So Monero nowadays has a large ring allowance, and you can use more signatures that all seem more like normal transactions that are not like they're like you can't really tell when it's a an asset being signed versus like a transaction being signed. More of the transactions on chain look similar, and so we can think that as part of the privacy. That's how why the systems that we've talked about up to now, like Dandelion ++ and Bulletproofs, and that's why they all do what they do. So that way we can all work together. They all work together for a better privacy set. Now, if you do remember our Shadow Dive, we spoke about how XMR is very confusing. Well, hopefully it's a bit easier to see why. The he said, she said really is the reason. But we all said something else with it. That is the exact phrase. She said, the he said, she said, but we all said something else with it. That's what the public has to work with. What I just said. If the public has to work with all that, it's very confusing. Everyone's always said when you come at me with the he said, she said, we can't handle it because no one knows who's right. Exactly. So the miners have a type of transaction serial number to know what's good. Sometimes it takes a spendage to test a key to see if it's good. So sometimes a chain split may collapse, just to show the true chain, making what appeared to be X amount of XMR disappeared, while the real amount of XMR in that chain split was actually revealed to be less in reality. That's the beauty of adding ring signatures to your chain. It does indeed make things confusing to the public. So today's dive may not seem as deep as the last one, but it truly is deep in Monero, because without it, we would need an additional measure for privacy, because we would just be imagine you're trying to transact a Bitcoin, and instead of just using your node, you finish up your transaction hash and you hand it over to your buddy on a piece of paper, and then he plugs it into something and sends it digitally to someone else through some private system, and that person actually transacts it to the blockchain just to be directly tied to you in every possible way other than your IP. That is that's it. Without ring signatures, that's the difference. It's still you. We can still see it's you. We can still see who it got sent to. And next time we come up, we will be able to show you how to hide how you received it or who received it, stealth transactions. So we're going to dive down deeper and deeper, because there's not a whole lot more, but stealth transactions, and then the rest of the stuff will be in a single video to help you guys out. I hope you guys have been enjoying this XMR breakdown. I'm trying to do it as very simple as possible, but just like with Monero, it doesn't really make sense unless you're looking at it more like under construction, not under construction, and that's about it, because Monero is always under construction.